I'm just so grateful to have you here with us today. I think this is going to be a really special experience, and I'm so happy to see your face. Hi, Jeff. Hi, Lisa, Ken, Becky, Deb. Very happy to see all of you and more of you joining as we go. So in the current climate, as many of you know, the work I do is called the Seven Awakenings. And I've jumped to the end because Seven Awakenings is about the concept that most of the discomfort in our lives is based on fear, whether that's fear of shame, of emotional suffering, of guilt, of so many other things, of rejection. And so the Seven Awakenings is about learning to dissolve the fear in the moment so you're no longer controlled by it and dissolving that discomfort. And because it's the beginning of the year and because the seventh one is my very favorite, we're jumping ahead to basically what we call spirituality, which is a very broad term. Call it whatever you like, the divine, your gut instinct, God, whatever that is for you. But I think that it's very hard, and we're going to talk about this today. It's very hard to experience peace just intellectually, because I've tried. So what is that next step, and how do we do that? Dissolving fear. One of the ways I describe the seventh awakening without using the word spirituality is fear of the constraints of time. Because when we have uncertainty, it means we're worried about the future. If we're worried about death, it means we're worried about the constraints of time. If we're worried about health, it's very much about time, which, as we all know, is our own linear kind of measurement, right? So what does that actually mean? Well, before we get started, and we're letting a few more people join, I'm just going to introduce you to some of these amazing human beings I am so fortunate to have on the call today that have come from me from all different places around the world, and I am absolutely thrilled and honored to have them here. Amit Sood is originally from India. He teaches spiritual awakening and the journey to enlightenment. And he served as a professor for several years at the Sri Sathya Sai Institute. I might have said that wrong. In India. And he has a background for many years in business, and now is a high-level leader for spiritual development and enlightenment to corporate leaders in America and around the world. So welcome so much. We're so happy to have you here, Amit. Sophia Moulanin is from Morocco, a fascinating human being. She is a fifth-generation Bedouin healer from the Sufi tradition. If you don't know anything about that, Sufi tradition is where some of our incredible, great inspirations like Rumi has come from. And she also has earned her PhD from Johns Hopkins University and worked in the US for many years. She's currently in Morocco. Thank you. So happy to have you here, Sophia. And Ben, joining us from near Cambridge in the United Kingdom, has a fascinating story about where he is in his own spiritual journey, having left extremely big business world with the decision to find peace for himself and to completely reevaluate the trajectory of his life, exploring, and so much authenticity from you, Ben. I always appreciate you sharing. And Ben and I also have a great connection deeply around nature. And then my dear friend Richard Marks from New York City, right downtown. Richard is the head of the Fellows Community for the Episcopal Church Foundation. And he has an extraordinarily rich background in training in the arts. Has a wonderful book, as some of the others of you do as well. I don't have those in my list, but a wonderful heart. And I think that's where we really come from with intention, is from a place of love and heart to have this conversation, laying aside as many of our differences as we can in order to know that we're all held by people, like-hearted people. Sometimes when I have a really bad day and I'm not around anyone, I just close my eyes and I'm like, but I have met some of the most incredible human beings around the world. And whether I can reach out to them right this minute or not, I just know there's thousands, tens of thousands, probably more humans who understand, who would come hold me right now if they could. So just feeling that, having that knowledge, knowing that you can reach out to people, really brings a lot of peace as well. So, Freya, if for some reason my screen disappears, please let me know. All right, so I want to just dive in. We're going to kind of keep our comments somewhat short, just so that we can all participate. These four speakers, guests that I have today, in what we call a salon, if you're love history, those French salons, the big living room conversations with intellectuals, spiritual leaders. That's what our chat is about today. That's kind of why we called it a wisdom conversation. And for all of you watching or listening, we would absolutely love it if you would drop your questions or comments into the chat. And I'm inviting not just myself, but all of our speakers to feel free to keep an eye on that so that we can respond. If you are watching on other platforms right now, if you're watching on our live stream on LinkedIn, on X, or on YouTube, you can comment there and we'll try to respond. It might be after. If you really want to be in the live space, feel free to jump on Zoom with us. You can do that by just going to my website, annescotland.com. All right, so diving in, my first question, and I think I'd like to throw this one out to you, Amit, just to get the ball rolling, if you would be so generous. We're talking about peace without certainty. Is peace a feeling, a decision, a kind of spirituality, or is it something else? How do we describe peace? How would you describe peace?
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Anne. And it's a brilliant question. It's one that invites one to contemplate a little more deeply than on the surface. Peace appears to be rewarding as an experience, but it doesn't come just from the surface of the reward itself. It is a transformation into peace that generates it. So, to me, and if I was to keep my response very brief, it origins in congruence, it origins in alignment. So it origins from an inner clarity or conviction, a certain kind of grounding. And this kind of grounding can only happen when we suspend grasp of knowing, intellectual clarity, informational clarity, material clarity. So this kind of grounding is one which is without a ground, the kind of ground which is of the heart. So peace is an appreciation of what's already here, giving up of resistance, and one is naturally there. It is a reward of giving up of the strife itself. Does that resonate?
Yeah, so I think that's really interesting because it feels to me like it's, in a sense, it's a bit of a mixture. I mean, we are in these bodies, right? So we are this receptacle, if you will, for peace. So it sounds to me like there is an element of decision in there, even though this is a not peace itself is a non-intellectual experience to us in a certain regard. Richard, I'd love to hear you respond to that.
So thanks, Anne. And Amit, so I wrote it down. So Amit said, peace is a reward of giving up strife. And you might have said strife of self, if I heard it right, but let's just stop at strife. So a reward of giving up strife. So how I often look at all healing or self-healing, which is one of my really like main areas of interest, because I think we can all practice self-healing, is surrender. That's the other word we might use in parallel is when I hear it. It's like giving up strife. So surrender is something we don't necessarily want to do. That's one of the problems, Anne, that, it's hard to finally it's not just control, but it's surrender of self or surrender of emotions and feelings. So there's a lot written about this. I see a lot of people nodding. So and what I've learned about surrender is you can surrender all the time. So I guess that's one of the lessons of surrender, is not to surrender when you must or when you're finally at your rope's end, but surrendering literally every moment eventually, so that flow comes back through the way that Amit was describing it, that there's this sort of flow that's supposed to be happening in peace. Does that sound about right? So I see surrender as a kind of modern or another way to live it out.
Amazing. I see Jeff responding with yes. Excellent. Yeah, that I agree. So I hate the word surrender. It just makes me I mean, I don't know if it's a woman growing up in an extremely conservative patriarchal environment, or if because I'm a firstborn type A Capricorn or what, but that is just like I ain't gonna take it laying down. And it was a lot of my traditional religious upbringing used that word constantly.
Uh-huh.
And to me, surrender meant that I had no will of my own, that I was giving away all sense of choice, and that I found unbearable. So I'd like to jump over to Ben. And Ben, can you? I know you've been dealing with a lot of change in recent years in your life. Um, how does peace and surrender work together from where you sit?
Thank you so much for doing all of this, Anne. It's amazing. I could just sit here and listen. Amazing. I like to talk from experience as opposed to theory. Yes, having gone through a collapse, dissolution, and in the integration phase, I'd say from my own experience, it's been a glimpse in terms of the state, and it's just a glimpse, exciting and a glimpse. Um, I'd classify the work in inverted commas that I do. It's somatic, so energy is felt. So something that I'm giving my power away to, building on the surrender point. Um, be it a thought about the past or the future or an emotional trigger, it's having awareness of that and dropping into the body to feel the sensation and simply to breathe until it's felt and released. And that's the process I'm in at the moment, which has got teeth because it's deep. I've been stripping away everything external and been in a solitude bubble consciously recently of let go of social media, conversations, outside noise. So very much focused on the breath, as you said earlier, time outside, so in nature, walking, grounding. And in moments it's scary in terms of that because what does the mind love doing? Remunerating in lower thoughts, they come in, and then triggers come in, and that's really, I guess, the work in terms of, and I don't know if it should be phrased as the work, but in terms of dropping into the body, feeling the sensation until the energetic charge has released.
That's
So I
great.
don't know what I don't know what it feels like to be at peace currently. It would be hypothetical for me. And like I said, there's just glimpses, but that's my eye
This
on the
is
prize
amazing.
of, what does peace mean? I don't know, but my feeling
Yeah.
would be to be present, to be in each moment fully and completely, having transmuted all the lower energy, all the lower thoughts,
Yeah.
the
That's really
emotions,
good.
and
And
to have
hold on,
regulated the
Richard.
nervous system. Because
I'm
I
going
was in
to
fight and flight
can
the
you hear
whole of my
me?
life.
I think Ben is on a delay, so I'm going to jump over here for a second. So yes, and this is, I know we've talked, Ben, how much nature. See, I have no problem submitting to nature because first of all, I don't have a choice, which is kind of, maybe that's part of it, right? Like remembering that we're nature. We're not really, we have no right to think we're above nature. We might be stewards of nature, but we're just nature. Despite our spirit, we are still animals, we are mammals, we are subject to the world we live in, right? So when I go out in nature, I get this enormous sense of calm, and I don't feel like I'm wrestling anything. I mean, as long as there's no crazy wild animals. I feel like I'm actually, that's where I do get really grounded. And I'm going to come back in a couple minutes, a minute or two, Sophia, to you, because I want to talk to you more about the physical element of that grounding. But before we do that, Deb said to allow is an alternative to surrender, to release control and trust. Again, I struggle with that. Self-healing is a path. And Jeff says, I used to think that surrendering was the ultimate loss of control. I saw you waving around when I was saying that, Jeff. The ultimate definition of stress. Yes, thank you. That is the best. That is how I've always felt that as well. The ultimate definition of stress was surrender, because it put me into every element of fight, flight, fight, or freeze that my body could even have. So that was complete antithesis of peace, obviously. But before I move on to Sophia, Richard, you had a quick comment on Ben's there. Go ahead.
I have two quick thoughts, and it's something, it's planting a seed here, because Ben, I like what you're saying. And we're dealing with a collective, and we're dealing with relationships with other people. And that's where it gets, to me, even more important that we know how to find peace and surrender, or whatever we're calling this, but peace. Because the people that are in my life are not people that I just can throw off anymore when I don't like what they're doing. So what I'm trying to say is, the work that's in front of us is often the very person who's kicking it back. And that's not when we want to surrender. But when I have said those words, okay, I surrender. When I've said the words, then I find the other person shifts. And then the whole story goes away. Like, it's being able to say it while it's happening, when it's happening, in relation to a person that's in front of you, and not just going off into my bedroom and like working on myself. So this is important, because I think when we're out in the world now and trying to make the world better and heal and help other people, we're like, we got to be able to do it while it's happening with other people.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And a nice transition to Sophia too, to hear your comment on Richard and talk about, you know, how you see as a healer, you know, peace. How does that relate to the body?
Yes. So for me, peace at the beginning, it was the ultimate goal, right? Like, I would be happy whenever I find the peace at the end. But I just realized, as I was on my healing journey, I realized that it was a choice to just feel it at every moment, like Richard was saying, right? It's really hard to do. I'm not saying just, you know, you just choose it and that's what happens. But again, it's about figuring out a way to surrender, but not in the way, and I understand, and I felt the same way, like it was like I'm being forced, I'm being commanded, like I have to obey. But now I see surrendering like more as a power, like as a me, like being empowered by choosing to surrender, like, you know, so for times, and especially with other people. So it's all about the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like, there are stories that are stored in our bodies. So the story behind surrendering, for us, it was, oh, we're being forced to do something, right? So if we rewrite that story, and that's what I've been doing in my own work and guiding people to do, to just rewrite the stories that have been embedded in us throughout our life, but also through our ancestors and the collective, right? It's all about really figuring out to accept the world we're in, accept that we have those stories stored in us, and little by little just peel it off and start rewriting the stories until we can figure out how to live in peace with other people, as Richard was saying, not just hidden in a bedroom, like, oh, I'm at peace, like really figure out. And it's a constant work. It's a work in progress. I've just been triggered like 2 days ago. So it's really hard. but that's really, but I'm realizing it now, right? Like just being aware of it is already half of the job done. So that's what I'm
That's
working.
amazing. Thank you for sharing that. No, that is absolutely fantastic. And I feel that. And it's interesting because now that we're just talking about this, I'm feeling that it's what you're surrendering to that is what I resisted. Would I have a problem surrendering to peace? I don't think so.
Well, if I jump in, what you're surrendering is the emotion that you're feeling when you're not okay. So so it's the verb surrender. It's surrendering, like you're saying, it's surrendering it. So you're feeling pain, you're feeling fear, you're feeling jealousy, you're feeling what you surrender it. And what the idea is that once you literally let it go, and again, like Amit said, like it's what do we say, like a giving up of strife. You surrender that, the next level up comes. All of a sudden, you're not in that vibration anymore. You're not in that energy field anymore. It's energy. So it's energy. It's not, I know what you're saying. There's an object to surrender, but if we get rid of that, we're just pure energy here.
And this is true. This is true because
it's a shift up in the moment.
Just saying surrendering to peace, and we could go so far down into the energy conversation, and some of us would be there for years. So we'll pause on that. But yes, and thank you for pointing that out. And but yes, I think while we're still stuck in our intellectual minds, which most of us are much of the time, understanding that you're like what. Okay, here's another example. Surrendering to love can be difficult. I like to take care of myself, do my own thing. And sometimes I'm kind of hard. It's hard for me to let people love me, let people care for me because I want to do it all myself. But really, surrendering to love in a healthy way should be bliss, and the same surrendering to peace as we define that energy. And I'm going to pop up here really quick to some of the other comments. Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Stanley. Yes, just being present. And I think that's continuing to resonate, that is. And what I love about that is being in the present moment is you always are. So you always have that choice. It's not like you have to sit around and plan it, but you can have some techniques that might help. Yes, Ken, all of us together. And I think that's the no man is an island, no woman is an island principle for those of us who are sort of these fierce independents. I think remembering that we're part of a community, whether we like it or not, we're part of nature, we're part of the human race, we're part of community. And not only to contribute, because I find I have a lot of ease around contributing to the community, but I sometimes have a hard time receiving peace, love. And then Michael, thank you. Solve yourself, go to the nose, follow the breath, witness awareness. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And that is, again, just in right aligned there with what Stanley was saying and being in that moment. And with that in mind, also, Michael, for those of you watching, and I'm just going to throw this out now in case any of you happen to have to jump off before the end today. But if you want to put the word peace, all caps, in the chat, we also have a one-page sheet to give you at the end of today that is in the moment steps to find peace in the moment, even if that's after an argument, at work, at home, or worst case, when you can't stand yourself. some practical steps to help you. And also all the information of all the speakers will be on there today. Likewise, speakers, you're more than welcome to put your URLs and any other contact information in the notes as we go. And then Jill, Ken, what is the constant of peace? Ooh, that's really good. Jill, I love the Rumi quote. Okay, thank you for quoting Rumi. Paraphrase, over there in a field. Oh, I do know this one. Over there in a field where there is no right or wrong, I will meet you there. To me, if you can be with someone and acknowledge their right or wrong, their right, wrong can be just, and therefore so can I, and be at peace. So I love that quote about the field where there is no right or wrong. And I think that's also really what this conversation, which is part of what I call the seventh awakening circle, is a space of no right and wrong, of open exploration of people of all backgrounds and all faiths. So thank you. And Jen, and maybe surrendering in relation to yourself, being willing to surrender our own control, our own stress to the greater consciousness of the universe. Yeah, and that will help on our journey to peace in relation to others, the collective as well. Absolutely. Again, as one body, oneness, as many of us talk about frequently. It's the surrendering of identity doesn't surrender your value. I think that's part of it. Like in the old mind, Sophia as a young girl in a controlling environment, for you, for me, the way we grew up, surrendering in that environment meant surrendering surrendering your identity, as opposed to having peace in the collective, in the consciousness of the universe. They are different. And I am a huge wordsmith. And if anyone has new words for surrender or spirituality, please put them up here. I'm going to come to you, Amit. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's one word that came. I'm triggered by you said one word, and the word that comes to me is spaciousness. So as if I'm permitting myself to have more room around me, not just physically, emotionally, communications, influence, and boundaries. Not just that, but in my breath, I'm letting my heart have some room. I'm permitting myself to let go of pressure upon me. I'm willing to let myself be safe with me. And this spaciousness, this spaciousness is also a practice as well as an appreciation of what's already here. So I'm also connecting with several topics that showed up as we were talking about this idea. Healing. Healing is also about letting be and permitting me to recover, diving deeper into my heart so that my heart recovers from the pressure that the strife, the intellectual, clamoring generates. And the practice is spaciousness. And the idea is to appreciate through breath, through healthy boundaries, through alignment within myself of values, to connect with what you said, which is about grounding myself in my core, where not being confused, not being misaligned, establishing clarity within, and then permitting myself to have some room to myself and holding the same for others. That's the practice of love. For me, permitting others to have safe space in my presence, where my presence brings safety for others, less pressure, let be. And that doesn't mean indifference. It means generosity of nurturing, just like the sun does, just giving radiance or generosity of presence without any pressure of you ought to be somewhat different from how you're being. So encouraging.
I love that. Thank you so much. Yes, and I think that the word spaciousness, my favorite word so far today, and to me, that would be the opposite of control.
Yeah.
And especially when you're trained up in an environment of control, whether that's personal or familial or religious or whatever that is, and you're taught that if you're out of control, that's the worst possible situation. But learning that spaciousness versus that clenching, the clamoring, that uptightness, and then holding that space, not just for yourself. And that's a big part of all of this for me is, willing to love. And as Ken was talking about, forgiving yourself as well as others, but that release, the willingness to forgive and love yourself. And that's a big part of what the work I do and many of you do as well, is that's where the spaciousness can start to happen. And that's what I call, so that's the perfect example. That's the awakening, when you start awakening out of living in a space of strict control and into spaciousness. Stanley said, there's a language that we use and the language that uses us. Based on conditioning, each word can be a container and is either freeing or in bondage. And on that note, how we use our words in our own mind as well. And I'll be to you in a second, Richard, in our own mind as well, how we use our words, self-talk, goes right in there with self-love, self-forgiveness, putting ourselves down, being impatient with ourselves, constantly being hard on ourselves, harder than most of us would ever be on anyone we loved. Why is surrendering seen as failure? If we surrender to driving rules on the road, what is that, a failure? Thank you. I love that very much. That's excellent. Excellent. Oh, the fifth natural element with Jeff. Yes. Oh, yes. Okay. Well, yes. Coming back to that. And then before I go to Richard, Deb, I think peace is our most foundational essence. Oh, I love that. Because that means that's more of a returning, which I think all of the speakers here today would agree. This is a returning to. It's not a putting on something foreign. Peace is our foundational essence, and surrender to of distractions that allow us to return to our true nature. Yes, Richard?
Okay, I've got a word. You know, I'm obsessed with this word, and I think it is a word I hope you all like, and it's movement. So movement, it to me is also inherent in spiritual life. What you said at the beginning about dissolving fear and that you're working on in the seventh awakening, dissolving fear, it comes through movement. And movement goes with time. Movement goes with music. Movement goes with our bodies. Sophia, if you're doing Sufism, it's all movement. Everything's movement. It's getting it, whatever the it is, getting it moving in our bodies and in our language and in our everything.
Excellent. So, I love that. And it's perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Richard. And I'm going to transition into a new question. I had a question that I think has answered itself. It was, does practicing peace require some sort of faith? And not particularly in a religious aspect, but I think we've realized that it's more of a choice and an activity. And so I'm going to move into this. We talked about how do you restore peace in the present moment, and Sophia talked about writing, peeling off the layers, peeling back old stories, which is an ongoing process, I would think, as several of you said, about breath, relax, surrender, creating spaciousness. So let's get really specific for just a minute and say, when you're experiencing fear, which is how I describe most of our discomforts, when you're experiencing fear of loss of a job, fear of real things, fear of loss of a relationship, fear of pain, fear of someone else that you care for suffering, what can you do in your own mind to bring about that calming peace? We've talked about the body, but sometimes we need a little transition. I'm going to go to Ben or Sophia, either of you. How do we move in our mind to make the choice from fear to peace? And if not, anyone else can also jump in.
Sophia, would you like to go first?
Sure. So there are so many tools, you know, but at first it was more telling myself, like, you know, like making, because that's the kind of person I am, I would go to the worst case scenario and see that, oh, that's the worst case scenario. Let me prepare for the worst case scenario, which only made me even worse, feeling even worse. So then I learned so many tools during the way. Like the last one was tapping. So I tap in, just anything to relax the nervous system. But I also really love writing. I'm also an author, so I love the words. I love the languages. But I realized that the problem was with our thinking mind. That anything that I could come from my thinking mind wouldn't help me solve the, like, you know, erase the fear, because that's what brought it in the first place. So I would just trick my thinking mind and go into my subconscious and just try to figure out where the fear came from. So I use that tool that is intuitive writing, which is automatic writing, which is just writing without stopping until you stop thinking, you know, rationally, and you go somewhere deeper to just figure out a way. And whenever you go deeper, or you can even connect, some people channel, you can connect to your guides, to the, you know, to source, and you just find there that there is hope, that there is a best case scenario. What about we write these stories? What about we see it from the best case scenario? And that's just enough time for me, at least, to just reset and go back to, you know, feeling calmer and more balanced, and just say, I'm aligned. You know, this is not the present moment, and just breathing also. I think somebody said about breathing, just combining all the tools to just get rid of the fear. So there are so many out there.
That's amazing.
There are so many things, right? Like, just do not stay stagnant, right? Like moving, like you also, like this is moving, of not just staying in that fear.
Thank you. Yes. And sometimes movement comes before something like stillness or meditation. I'm just going to throw that in as parenthetical. For those of us who carry a lot of physical energy, sometimes you need to get find ways to do that, like the tapping or the journaling, whatever that is, before you can go into that rebuilding peaceful space. Ben?
If I've understood the question correctly, I suppose there's two parts for me. One is, what do you do in the moment? And two, what do you do to stabilize, to regulate, to integrate? And I'd start with the latter. So yeah, as everybody said, but having a simple daily routine of, what do I do when I wake up? Focus on the breath. I'm sat up straight, my feet are on the floor, I'll go outside. And these aren't timely exercises, but again, that stabilizes the nervous system. And then regulating throughout the day, again, the breath, water, movement. It's simple stuff, but layering it day after day after day, so then it becomes second nature in terms of that. If there's a trigger, and that's what's been really interesting, I suppose the more present I've felt, the more aware I am when, okay, I'm looping, there's a lower thought or there's a loop of lower thoughts. And the car has been a really interesting experience of 3 hours of just being, as Amit said about spaciousness. That really helps. That's why nature's so amazing, as opposed to, fight, flight, or freeze, which is I'm narrow focused, just broadening my vision. Okay, I can breathe. But yeah, the car's interesting of, okay, lower thought, lower thought, lower thought. So what would I do then? Okay, that's a loop. And that takes out the energetic charge by maybe 50%. And literally just breathe. Because if I'm focusing on it, it's perpetuating it. And the emotional triggers, again, for me, it's, okay, I'm feeling something. What am I feeling? Don't get stuck in the story, Ben. Drop down into the body. Where is the sensation in the body? I mean, if we're going down the chakra route, but base, sacral, solar plexus, it's going to be one of those. Certainly for me, where's the sensation? And then feel it and just breathe 4 seconds in through the nose, 8 seconds out, calming the vagus nerve. And just keep on breathing and feel the wave release. And typically, I mean, I've had long trigger moments of an hour and a half, but they're getting less now, and it's quicker. Awareness transforms into consciousness of, like, lean into it, feel it, and release it. It's just a wave, and it will pass.
I appreciate that, because you're talking about allowing ourselves to feel, and this is all such great work, and so much what I do in awakenings and everything else. This is perfect. Allowing yourself to feel the discomfort, learning how to dissolve discomfort, moving into more spaciousness, and then emerging with in a new way, a new space. And I just want to ask Richard for a second, because Ken mentioned prayer, for example. And I love, Richard talks a lot about prayer. In fact, he has a whole book about it. And just for a moment, Richard, we don't have time to go into tons of details, but whether you're a religious practitioner of Christianity, any other religion, or even if you're not, share with us a moment, Richard, what does prayer look like to anyone, anywhere, and how can that help you on your road to peace?
Let me give you guys bullet points, because I have spent 6 years on the question of what prayers do. And so I'm changing Anne's word. It's not prayer, it's prayers. It's the prayers themselves that I focused on being extremely important, because they activate. So it's this third word now. So let's say we are going to add another word, movement. The third is self-activation, or what we're intending to activate. And so I call it like self-activation right now is part of what what I think we're doing here with Anne today is that we're doing a collective activation. And so when we create prayers from ourselves, I see them as a way of giving ourselves instructions to ourselves. We're not getting it from outside. You're not going to the Bible. You're not going to the Quran. You're not going to the bookstore, getting 12 self-help books. It's coming directly from inside yourself to yourself. Native American people call these the original instructions often. You hear it that way, right? It's not coming from it's you and source. It's you and the earth. It's you and whatever you are. And so prayers for me are very important that we not only like reconnect with what they were always about to begin with, since the beginning of human history, and not just things that we go and have to read and recite by memory from childhood. Prayers are a very real thing. And when we sing them, then often that's what I think music is really doing for us, is that then we're doing the sound activation in the body. We're grounded in the earth. We're sending the energy up and out. And it's why we all love to go to concerts. I'm obsessed with like just the joy of being in a musical setting for that reason, especially when it's prayers. But many musicians are writing lyrics that look and sound like prayers because they came from themselves and now they're sharing them with you. So my whole thing is, why aren't we doing that for ourselves? It's a very simple practice.
That's great.
But the last thing I'll say is I see it as a form of activism now. If in the word activate, and Amit or others, just I'm sure you all know that, but it's the movement. It's what we're activating. It's what we're pushing out of ourselves. It has to be higher stuff, and prayers embody that. I've never been able to write a negative prayer. Prayers are inherently from ourselves, so they're based in love, and you can't go wrong with it. You cannot write a negative instruction to yourself. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, and thanks, Richard. This was beautiful, and I couldn't agree more. I think the practice, fear and love cannot coexist. There is no possibility of fear when there is love present. And prayer connects us directly with love. This is one way in which we are activating both surrender, spaciousness, and we are connecting with the depths of our heart. So love is automatically here. And another thing that the prayer does, and this is about creating grounding, which is that we are, prayer connects us with the sorting out of declutter in our head, which is centering ourselves into what we have no doubt about. We establish ourselves in faith on what we hold to be true. So fear in short term needs love. My own love for myself, love of others if I can't generate it for myself. Because I do need love from you, from others, when I haven't practiced generating love for myself yet. That's the short term. But the long term, there ought to be grounding in clarity. Fear needs, over the time, it must establish grounding in clarity. And it is like when I'm in the pool, a turbulent pool, I'm trying to find ground. It already exists, but I'm not reaching out with my feet. So it's about letting go to surrender and then find the ground once. Once you do, then you're established clearly. So fear needs grounding, fear needs clarity, but that's all the long term. Immediately, it needs love.
Yeah,
And
love. And that's
you're bringing tears to my eyes while you're saying that. That's how I know you're saying something very important.
Yeah. No, so beautiful. Really beautiful. And any of our other speakers want to comment on that before we move on? Say hi to Melissa. Glad you're here. Yeah, grounding in the moment. Love, and I know another favorite word of both Richard's and mine and many of you, but is joy. Love and joy. So love, joy, and peace, really. Wow. Okay, there you go. Love, joy, and peace.
I'll just throw something in here since we're on the problem of like you've got the kind of problem with, whether spirituality is a word you want to use or not. Prayers has the same problem. I just want to throw that up there as a language peel, because we're a group of self-healers and healers here. Prayers has there's a block people have with it because they've been like told what it is, how to do it. And if you do it your way and not their way, then they're, back to their way. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you all have
I
ideas.
love that. I think
Call
that
it, but I've
thinking,
struggled with that as a writer, just saying. And it's
yeah, I think about reconnecting, and then I'll go to Amit, reconnecting with the divine in all of this, really, that it's a reconnecting, giving up the formulas. Even control is a huge formula that we've been raised in some sort of straitjacket from childhood, in this idea of like having to be constantly controlled. Um, and moving instead into that space, like the actual, today, peace with uncertainty, and I meant that in the face of uncertainty, but also peace is uncertainty. Peace can be, and uncertainty can be complementary, because if you have uncertainty and you have peace, you're always going to be grounded. So Amit, please go ahead.
So I was inclined to say that there appears to be a paradox, and yet there is, we need to sort it out in the heart rather than the head. The paradox is that when there is uncertainty, the self seeks clarity and certainty. It wants grasping for realism, financial stability, things like that. We are looking for that. But what will heal it is to release the strife and allow a certain sense of surrender and open-hearted, love present prayer, that mood of it's all right. So there is a need for us to also permit, appreciate what's already here. So rather than run after, and from the capacity to appreciate and to suspend strife, the capacity to regroup and take action again is back. So to re-emphasize my if I was to summarize, my idea is that prayer doesn't have to be an entity or a certain regimented way of reaching out to a certain deity that I have found, whether in some concepts or books or preaching. It is about what resonates with my heart the best, and reaching out greatest amount of love. If I am able to reach out to anything and feel a connection of love, it could be to a person, it could be to the universe or nature itself. It instantaneously heals fear. And then the next thing is to let myself have some of that fear. As soon as I'm willing to feel it, it's there for me. And now I ground myself in clarity, that my values are clear, why I'm taking action is purposeful and true. Results will follow eventually. That's the certainty. It doesn't look like certainty, but it feels like certainty, and it is certain. So
I love that. And there's an element of patience, I think. Being patient with ourselves is one of maybe the first steps in prayer, in the participation of prayer, in creating that space. I looked like Sophia was going to say, just a second, I'm going to quick note, just for those of you who have popped in, you're here. This is the Seventh Awakening Circle. Feel free in the next few minutes, so before we wrap up, which I don't ever want to do, but you're not going to want to miss the next few minutes. If you would like to see this kind of event happen again, please write yes in the chat. I would just like to know if it's resonating with any of you. If you would like to ask a question to any of the speakers today, Amit, Ben, Richard, myself, Sophia, go ahead and drop that in the chat now. We'll take any questions over the next few minutes if you happen to have any. And if you didn't hear this before, if you would like to receive the one sheet on peace in the moment that I'll send out later today, just type the word peace in the chat. So going over to you, Sophia.
Just to go back about the word prayers, and praying and all the connotation that it has. For me, when we were little, when we were taught to pray to God and to ask for what we want, right? Like they would always say, don't say it just in your heart, like say it out loud. So now I'm seeing it more like a sound healing, right? Like when you pray and when you do it out loud, it's more about activating, like Richard was saying, and it's a sound healing. So it could be even in a musical tone, in light language, people do light language, right? It could be, the prayers are not just what, like all the sentences that we've been taught in any certain language or in religious studies. So that's all I want to say, just about the importance of sound healing, or seeing it in a different way.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, wherever you stand on the 21st century version of affirmations that have fallen short for many of us who have tried practicing them with determination. It was less about that and more about verbalizing and speaking into reality. You know, the Bible says, you know, God spoke the world into existence, is that in that tradition, right? So the power of the word is huge. And Richard tying into that, you know, that the sound of prayers, the action of taking the prayer, the speaking of the prayer, the movement of prayer, putting it into music, all of these are some of the most beautiful and simple ways to kind of be moving toward peace. We're waiting in case anyone else has questions. I love this, what Jeff said. I'm typing the entire dictionary. Yes, wordsmiths. Okay. I practice the 369 written affirmation every day, and it's a real game changer. That's amazing. And thank you so much for sharing that. So to our speakers, what last thoughts do you have? We have just a few minutes, but anything else that's just kind of coming to your heart that someone might need to hear today about peace with uncertainty? How do we live with uncertainty?
I'd love to know from you, Anne, again, just in a kind of nugget, what the seventh awakening is.
Sure. Oh, thank you so much. So the seventh awakening is awakening to a communication to something higher or deeper, depending on how you want to do that. Because the diffusing of fear in the first six awakenings, fear of all the main elements of our lives that keep us cramped. The last one being fear of the constraints of time, literally fear of being completely isolated in the universe, fear of what is or isn't next. And this is the awakening to something bigger than ourselves. So without speaking strictly from a religious perspective, I would say this is the opportunity to start exercising faith. Faith is the willingness to believe your gut instinct. I know for many of you, this runs especially deep with a lot of women, but many of you all as well. Gut instincts are never wrong. You have these instant reactions, and you know right away that if you go against that feeling, you're going to make a bad choice. You're going to regret it. It has never steered me wrong in my whole life. And if that is very much, if you're limited to a very on the ground, physical, intellectual version of what faith means, then it's trusting your gut, but also then learning to listen to your gut. You have wisdom there that you've inherited through the ages. It's written imprinted in your DNA. So whether you feel you have a direct access to divine, which many of us also do, if that doesn't feel open for you at this time, then going to your deepest instinct, meditating and asking, I call it the triple bypass. It's one of the things I use in the seventh awakening, right? And I know to see Jeff nodding because he's heard me say that before. So first of all is you got to bypass the mind. So stop trying to figure it out when you have a question, right? Then you have to bypass the emotions. Should I be or not be in this relationship? Well, you have to distance yourself from that emotion for the moment. And then the hardest one is bypass the ego. Ego, good and bad, but ego, because it's going to steer you it's a hard taskmaster. If you bypass the mind, your emotions, and the ego, and you ask your gut, your higher self, your higher consciousness, the divine, whatever you want to call that higher wisdom, ask the question, you will almost certainly know the answer. And as I say that, I get goosebumps all up and down my body because it's so true. And if you haven't done that, try practicing that. So that is the seventh awakening, is awakening into a new era of power and peace in your own life, where you're no longer living in fear, even in a universal sense. So hopefully that answers. And thank you, Richard, for asking that. Anybody else? Any other speakers? Quick question or comment that you have right now?
And this was beautiful. I believe this, the 7 steps that you spoke about is the ultimate journey. And whether we do it willingly or in full awareness, or we let it happen under the radar, this is what we are up to in life, all of us, all the time. And I suspect what this conversation for me has re-emphasized is that this must happen. This journey is one of healing, a conscious work. It takes work. It takes some amount of effort. It takes some amount of discipline or conversations. So it does involve some work, and certain amount of mastery too. So some clarity, listening, and generating conversations which are powerful. This is about doing the work.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. And I just want to say that that is indeed my passion and what I would like to build in a space like this space or a space like this, which is a healing community where we can all have these open and honest discussions without agendas, laying aside politics and other petty differences that may obstruct are coming into this support. Because if we're all bringing each other along into that peace, into the principles of universal prayer that we've talked about, into an environment of love where you're held and cared for, it's a lot harder to live in that isolation. And this is a time of year where a lot of people get very dark because it's after the holidays and things aren't going and they're afraid of their finances in the coming year. So the more that we can reach out to those around us here and outside, the more love we can share in a healing community, the better. And Sophia, you had a last thing there. Go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to just again stress the not judging and not comparing ourselves to others, and also congratulate ourselves for each step we do. Even if we take 2 steps and 10 back, we're still going back again 1 step forward. And that's really helped me when I was throughout my journey, to just never give up and congratulate myself. I can still push through. So
thank you so much. Ben, did you have a parting word to share?
Thank you. Amazing. And yeah, I don't know, it's a word play with all of this. And I used to be really, well, this means this, like prayer, gratitude, being present, they're all the same. Like that's why this is so timely and it's so needed in terms of peace. Like we don't get peace through war, we get peace through peace. And it is collectively coming together. Yes, it's an individual journey. And I'll own this one as a belief system, even though my belief system is love doesn't have a belief system. Like that's being present in all love is. Like this is, the time of the Great Awakening, the ascension, the paradigm shift, the vertical learning curve of enough. Like we're not going to continue as humanity doing what we've done before and expecting a different result. It's time to, yes, individually take accountability and own our energy and be nice to ourselves and everybody else, and come together to actually co-create a planet that uplifts everybody and not just a few. So thank you for facilitating this. It's been an honor to be part of it and listening
so much. Thank you, Ben. And Richard, you had a comment.
Just wanted to kind of tie up, and you said it, Anne. You said a healing community. I think that establishes going forward from today that we're not worrying about what we're not anymore. We can just say we're a healing community. I just want to thank you for that. Yeah. And I mean that. And so instead of worrying about how we're framing everything in the world compared to what we think we have to frame, we don't have to frame it because we're here. And I want to thank you for making that happen. And so I think just the framing of today created that, and there's no more having to kind of keep resolving what we're not.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is beautiful.
Right? Do we all agree? Do we have consensus on that? Maybe a vote, second, a third, a fourth. Okay.
Oh, you're speaking my language. Thank you so much. And I'm going to invite our guest speakers now to drop their information into the chat if you have a URL that you'd like to share with your website or LinkedIn for any of you to reach out to. And we are all, again, I'm going to stay on here, but we're officially closing for any of those of you who might have to hop off right away. This has been an amazing, I've been dreaming a long time of having the Seventh Awakening Circle and a place to talk. And I want to thank so deeply and dearly for our guests from all over the world, Sophia, Ben, Amit, Richard, for being here. And for all of you as well for coming in and being here for this special conversation today.